I was a Rhodes Scholar. I graduated summa cum laude from Harvard University with a degree in political science. I took a break from that, decided I needed to go to Antarctica, do some research on some new species of penguins that had been discovered there. While I was there, we also discovered a new strain of bacteria that may or may not prove to cure cancer. Then I decided I need to return to my studies. When finished up my 2 doctorate degrees from Oxford University, one of which is earned and the other was honorary. You see, but something happened and everything before that point seemed like a waste. Today we are in Acts chapter 22 in our whole story devotional, and Paul is standing in front of a crowd and he starts listing off his accolades, one after another, and another. He says, I was raised in Jerusalem. I sat under the most prestigious teacher of the time. I reached the highest level of the highest court, and no one ever would even dare to call me uncommitted. See, but then he flips it upside down and he explains how everything that he thought to be true was wrong. You see, this speech wasn't about Paul at all, except to show that his accolades only highlighted his ignorance. Paul said that all of a sudden, everything clicked. And he says, I realized that I could never go back to my old life. There was a before this moment and there was an after this moment. If you're not familiar with Paul's story, he's also called Saul. He was on a road to Damascus and he was rounding up and imprisoning Christians there, the believers of this thing called the Way, this early church. But on the way to Damascus, a bright light appears to him and blinds him. And the voice of Jesus Christ himself comes to Paul. And he says, Paul, or Saul, why are you persecuting me? Now, Paul stays blind all the way until he meets a man named Ananias. And Ananias, through the power of the Holy Spirit, says, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And Paul's eyes were opened. See, but that wasn't the most head-spinning thing. It was what Ananias said next. You see, this is the moment that separates the before and the after. This is what he says. Ananias said, Paul, the God of our fathers has chosen you, that you should know his will and see the just one, and hear the voice of his mouth. For you will be his witness to all men. And he's saying this to this crowd. He's reliving this story in front of them, not so that they're somehow impressed, but because this is the message that God has for all of mankind. That God has chosen you to know his will, to see Jesus, and to hear his voice. You see, he invited Paul, the enemy of God, to become a son of God, to know his will, to see Jesus, and to hear his voice. So whether you come from a pedigree of kings with all these degrees and things that you've discovered and new animals or species that you've named yourself, or you dropped out of school at age 9 and had to work in the field since then, guys, the same message applies to both of you. God has chosen you to know his will, to see Jesus, and to hear his voice. So guys, whatever you're stressing about today, take a deep breath and know that God has chosen you to know his will, to see Jesus, and to hear his voice. And tuck that away. And in everything you say and do, be his witnesses wherever you go. Guys, we'll see you next time.